So as the Dark Elf project moves along, I'm starting to run a little dry on new things to show you. A lot of the figures are just like painting the previous figures, and I don't just want to repeat the same video over and over again. So we're going to change things up a little bit with this video. I got a little bored of my standard armor painting technique, and so I went to the store, picked up some new paints and washes, and decided to play around with them on the executioners. So we are starting with a heavy dry brush of Vallejo Model Air Gungrey. And then over that, for a little bit of highlight, we're going to lightly dry brush some Vallejo Model Color Chrome. Now here's where things get interesting. I decided to try some of the Army Painter Quickshade Inks. Now these are not the same as the Quickshade that comes in the big jar. That's a polyurethane overall wash. The inks are acrylic, but they're not regular inks. In fact, they're very unusual. They are somewhat similar to the Vallejo shades or the old Games Workshop inks in the fact that you just kind of slap them on and you don't have to worry about them drying improperly. Very easy to use. However, they have a real strange consistency about them. They're very thick. If you ever use any of Tamiya Smoke or the Tamiya Clears, they're almost about the same consistency, but they're true acrylics, unlike the Tamiyas. And just slap it on, and you have to put it on fairly thick. I tried thinning it out slightly, and it loses its effect. But just put on a big thick layer and it'll dry pretty much perfectly. I'm using a mix of the dark tone ink along with some blue because I wanted a bluish tinge to the armor. So it's about 3 drops dark to 2 drops blue, and just slather it on and let it go, and that's it. The Army Painter inks do darken the color quite a bit, so I did have to go back and edge all the areas with straight chrome, and that added a good amount of contrast to it and made the armor pop. In fact, it darkens it so much, I would actually in the future not bother with the Vallejo Gungrey and just do this over straight chrome or steel. Of course, if you want a darker armor, you can follow along this way, or if you want something brighter, a more stainless steel coat, try with just the chrome and the steel, and then do the wash, and then go back and edge it. Other than the Army Painter inks, there's not much more to cover in this video that I haven't already covered in previous videos. I did want to make a mention of the cloaks, though. In the first Shades video, I mentioned that I was using my blue violet base color first, and then putting in the shades and highlights afterwards. However, in the case of the cloaks on the executioners here, I'm starting with my dark color, which is my Vallejo Violet and Vallejo Blue Violet mixed together. And the reason for that is because this has a lot of tight folds in it. And I just want to make mention of that because I want you to see the difference when we get to the Dark Riders video, hopefully next week, to see the different methods of painting this. Tight folds, start with the darkest color, work my way up. When we get to the Dark Riders, you'll see how differently those are painted. Now, for those out there thinking that I used the wrong heads on these figures, I purposely used the black guard heads because it would be a good opportunity to work in my green color. That's it's supposed to be a complementary color in the Army, but I haven't been using it too much. So this is Vallejo Emerald, and plume like this is a perfect way to add that little spark of color into the paint scheme. And then after doing a little bit of highlights by adding white to the emerald, decided to try the Army Painter inks again, using straight dark tone ink on the plume, and it works okay here. I really think it's better suited for armor than non-armored areas, but you know, that's up to me. Also, I'm using the black ink is not the best way to shade this bright colored green, but it's kind of what I started with when I began painting this army like 10 years ago, and so I decided just to stick with it. But a dark green would work much better in this case. Since this video is a little bit short, I added this on as a bonus. Decals, using them on banners. I don't normally like to use decals on banners because it just doesn't fit in with all the paint. It just looks too clean. But you can use them as templates and paint over them, which is also good if you want to change the color of the banner or add more details. So, took a dragon snake thing off the Dark Elf decal sheet that came with the box, put it on the banner, and now I'm going over it with some Vallejo deep green mixed with black. Probably should have just used straight black. However, I was kind of making things up as I went along while doing this. That's why there's that lighter green up top. I was just experimenting. But black would work better because that would give you a nice crisp outline. Next came Vallejo deep green, and I tried to leave that previous green-black paint just along the edge, and so that gives me a good contrast between the blue and the serpent. And I'm just kind of painting the back of the serpent because I have a plan for the front portion. Next, I mixed in some yellow to the deep green and just started adding some highlights. And I kind of did them in a, well, you can see there, I don't know what you would call it, a little stripy pattern just to give a bit more contrast and texture to the dragon. So kind of highlighting off the little spines coming off the back. And then for the underbelly of the dragon, I'm going over that area with some Vallejo Model Color Flat Earth. And then finally I mixed together some game color bone along with the flat earth, and I'm just going around the underbelly and adding dots like they were plates of some sort. And that's about it. And I'm not good at freehand, I'm willing to admit that, but I just threw this in here to show you can use a decal and just add to it, and it's very easy. And you just want to make sure you work from layers. So you notice I started with all green and I worked off the green, and then I added brown and worked up from that. That makes it a lot easier doing freehand if you do it in basically layers and slowly build up to more detail. And that is it. The executioners are done. And this marks a momentous occasion because this means that over half of this project is done. I just have a few more box sets that you haven't seen done. I gotta make videos of those, and I have quite a bit more of monotonous repainting or repetitive painting to do, like painting 10 more of these guys. But we are on the decline, which is great news, so I can move on to something else finally. But these guys are done. The Armypainter inks, I do like them. They're unusual. I'll tell you that they're good. A bit unusual to work with, but it's something I'm going to play around with more in the future, because they are very easy to use when you want something done quickly, but they still look pretty good. And one last bit of trivia that I want to give you. If you notice the commander, he's the one with the non-helmet. Something I realized when I got to the end of this project, if you notice, his hair is in the exact same shape as the hair plumes on everyone else. And that's when I realized the plumes on everyone's helmet, those are not plumes. That's their hair. So apparently, the Dark Elf Executioners, or Blackguard since it's their helmets, take their long hair and shove it through a tiny little hole on the top of their helmets before they go to work every day. Now tell me that's not inconvenient.